nootropics,
Tom, can you even spell nootropics?
supplements, psychedelics,
They told us not to take drugs. Now there's all this research on taking drugs.
science of compounding, orgasmic meditation,
Individual results may vary.
and a whole bunch of other stuff we find interesting.
I don't want to spend 12 grand to shine a red light on my junk.
Just a couple of guys talking about somewhat strange health stuff.
There's something weird here, but I can't put my finger on it.
Irreverent Health starts now.
Man, I was so tired, and then Dr. Marilyn Schlitz showed up, and she was smiling, and I was like, "Oh, this is gonna be a good one."
You can't love
I
one
know.
child more than another, Marilyn, but I kind of do love the Thursday night shows because they're just like,
They get a little weirder than,
but it's a
than
good
the Friday
prime for
morning
Friday.
shows.
So Thursday's a great sort of like, all right, dust off the cobwebs, get it going. So yeah. So thank you for coming. Yeah, we were getting
Thanks for
to
having
talk
me.
pregame here a little bit, so you get a little bit of a sense about how we found you. But like, there's so many different things we could talk about with you. It's like I said when we were talking earlier, I'm like, I mean, we almost have too much to talk about. So let's just tiptoe into this.
Well, hopefully she has a good
There's
experience and
multiple,
wants to come back. That's
But let's tiptoe into
that's
this.
what we
Marilyn,
want.
How in the world did you come to do what you're doing now? How'd you get there?
Oh, which
As
story
we
would
say,
you like to
dealer's
hear?
choice.
It's
Yeah.
long format. You give them as many as you want.
We could talk
Is our
about
topic
We
healing?
certainly have no shortage of that here.
Sure.
But
Sure. And we're very loose with that term,
well,
too.
Tom hit the nail on the head, but you know what? Like, what do you define healing as? I think of it as like pretty much anything at all that makes life a little bit better, whatever that might mean to you. And that is honestly the best part about doing the show. Health means literally anything we want it to mean. Like, it's all justifiable too.
Well, so I guess the place to start was when I was about 18 months old. I was a precocious toddler wandering around, sampling the world in my cute pink jammies. And I inadvertently discovered a can of lighter fluid that my father had left on the table. And, did what a good empiricist does, which is to taste it and put it in my mouth. And that led in and out of intensive care and emergency room and, some pretty extreme circumstances. And I think that could have been the start of my journey. Obviously, I don't remember it very well, but,
You
the
freaked
family
me out
have
there for a
talked
second.
about
You're
it.
like, when I was 18 months old, I'm like, is she bringing 18-month-old her to this conversation where we're like, wow, wow.
I was like, she's starting early.
No, listen.
Well,
I'm very.
we could go wherever we want.
Yeah, no, that I and that's kind of why we keep the question so open, because there's no way you start with that. If we ask you tell us about your degrees, there's no way we get that out of you.
Well, I started studying advanced physics at 18 months. And,
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
you start the journey. What does that mean, though? Like, what started?
Well, I think it gave me a reverence for, the health professionals. And, I experienced a lot of love because of that. Everybody was very grateful that I survived it. The next journey, probably, fast forward to 16. And I was somewhere I shouldn't have been with somebody I shouldn't have been with on the back of a motorcycle at closing time of the bars. And we got hit by a drunk driver. It threw my body up into the air. I actually watched my body tumbling. So that was sort of my first out-of-body experience. Very vivid. And landed, smacked on the ground, and people were like, oh, call the ambulance. And I was like, oh, no, don't call the ambulance. I'm not supposed to be here. And I looked at my leg and I was like, call the ambulance.
Ooh.
And so got to the hospital, a lot of things happened there, but they talked about the possibility of having to amputate my leg because I ended up with 66 stitches. So it was a pretty severe cut.
Wow.
And they stitched me up and sent me home. And I remember laying on the couch in my family's living room. And I don't know where this idea came from, but somehow I intuited that I could harness my imagination to help my body heal. And so that's what I did. I visualized my immune system and I felt the tingling up my leg. And I don't know where that came from. My family, my dad was a tool and die maker. My mom was a housewife. We didn't have a medical background. So anyway, I went back to the hospital to have the cast removed. And, you know, it wasn't a remarkable recovery, but I do have 2 sturdy legs now. And I think that gave me some insights into the powers and potentials of consciousness. First, the out-of-body experience, then the idea of harnessing my consciousness, my imagination to heal my body. So those were things that really, you know, kind of triggered some questions. And that's kind of where it started. And then I grew up in Detroit, and it was a very harrowing time. Not that all times aren't, but it was during that. And I felt really impotent. I wanted to change the world. I wanted to do something that would help heal society, and I had no idea what to do. So I did all the things a teenager does when they can't do what they should.
I don't know what you're talking about. I've never done anything like that.
Won't go any further than that.
It's
God,
completely
why did we have her on the show again? She's so different. Yeah,
got
it. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, what a weirdo. Anyway, so then I went to Wayne State University in downtown Detroit, and I discovered 2 books. One was called The Structure of Scientific Revolutions by Thomas Kuhn, and it was about paradigm shifts. It was about the idea that we live in a worldview. We live in a model of reality. And the interesting thing about Kuhn's work is that he sort of deconstructed the nature of science and how, even though we think science is some kind of absolute, it changes and has changed periodically over time. And I thought, well, this is great, because that means that what I was experiencing in Detroit at this turbulent time might not be final. Maybe there was something else. So I got the idea of being involved in a paradigm shift. And then I was working with a neurophysiologist at the medical school. I was doing an internship. And we used to talk about consciousness, and he was a very far out guy. He used to study mummies and all kinds of wild things. Anyway, he gave me a book called Psychic Exploration by Edgar Mitchell, the Apollo 14 astronaut. Mm-hmm. And that book literally changed my life and set me on an odyssey. And that's the steps that it took to get me here.
I always feel like I gotta have a pen ready to go, and then I'm like, oh shit, I don't think I got the book right, but I think I got these 2. And it is so amazing to hear. Like, I literally wrote a book about, or a Substack post about a book that did that to me, and it started me off this weird little journey that I'm having. So I love hearing those framework books that kind of shift everything.
No, it's I'm
and
with
Matt's
you 100%.
going to say something more.
You know, whether it comes in books or we have so many we have so many mediums now, including Medium, right? Like that you can have sort of these like paradigm shifts, if you will, right? Like sometimes you just read it one day and you're just in an energy or in a field this day that you weren't in yesterday or any day before that. And all of a sudden it makes sense. And you're like, fuck, I needed to hear that exact thing at this exact time. And that's really what I love about all of this stuff, because look, let's call a spade here, Marilyn. This shit's fucking out there for anybody. Like, I mean, this is not like, you know, even for guys like us, like this would be at our periphery of, you know what I mean? Because like, look, it's the fuzziest to understand. It's the fuzziest to sort of quantify. It's the most interesting, I think, right now because of that sort of frontier-like tech, presentation of that. It's really kind of interesting stuff but it's complicated, and it's probably the most complicated in this little ecosystem that we operate in. So it's, you know, listen, we had an Akashic record meditation, which was awesome, but like, do you know how many people could say they did that last week? There's very few, Marilyn. Like, I mean, it's like,
well, you know, and I'm wondering if I'm going down this hole, and specifically inviting guests like you, because you said this. For me, this is a really I think the medical term is fucked up time. Like I didn't choose this time frame.
Oh yeah, that's a
you know, and to be trying to figure out what's the point of all of this is really where I feel like I'm at. And talking to people like you, I think reframe a lot for me, where it's like, no, it's okay. Everything's on fire, but that's all right. Somehow there's a plan here.
And I actually was
was
curious more on a tactical level, Marilyn. Like I have an art background. Back to one of the first memories I have in life was actually drawing, like of my existence. Like, I mean, that's how connected to this I am. Like it's me through and through. That said, my imagination is fucking ninja level. Like we're talking like razor sharp, and I sharpen that edge every minute of every day that I'm awake, and even when I'm not. When you said I saw my body hurling through the air, I could literally see my body hurling off of that exact motorcycle in that exact situation. I could tell you what streetlights are out. I can tell you what this guy had to drink because that's where I landed on the sidewalk. I mean, I could tell you everything about that scene. And what I'm very curious about is how, and I've heard this from many people, like I had this vision of like past life. You know, I've done a half a dozen past life regression things and I have thoughts, but I am struggling to separate my wild ass imagination from what could be a signal from a past life, for example, or me not getting hit on a motorcycle in that case. Does that question make sense? Like, I want clarity on this. Like, how do you know that that's like a thing? Well, yeah.
Please explain this to us.
How do you differentiate that? Like, how did you differentiate that? And like, how do you know that this is like sort of, I had an out of body versus I've reconstructed this scene in my head 4 million times. And I just now have this resolution of me doing this because does that matter? Is that a better phrased question now?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I think it's, not really entirely answerable. I do have a very strong visceral memory of that moment. So I don't think it's something that came after. It was veridical. It was a feeling. It was a sense. But it's true that our imaginations invite us to, many places that are either part of this materialist world or they're part of something else. And to me, it's really about what gives you meaning and what heals you, what allows you to understand where you are situated in this complicated world we live in. And I think that's something that we can all contemplate.
It's funny because we talk about N of 1 on this show incessantly. It comes up literally every show. So like even in this sort of like metaphysical sense, it's still N of 1. Like it's like,
It is and it isn't, because if you look, many, many, many people have had these experiences. And throughout history, people have had these experiences. So that part doesn't puzzle me. One of the things that I wonder about is whether, I basically spent my career trying to do science on these kinds of things. And there are days when I really wonder, is that just some kind of story that we're telling ourselves? Because the whole issue of replication and, trying to do these kinds of things under controlled circumstances where it's not just spontaneous, those are challenges, I think. And at the same time, trying to understand how people have these experiences, how those experiences mean something in terms of their lives. And does it give them a stronger sense of their interconnectedness instead of finding ourselves being separate and at war with each other? Perhaps these kinds of consciousness experiences allow us to connect in ways that are, ultimately socially healing.
We've had a couple of near-death experience people who have had them on the show, and you're kind of echoing what they're saying. Like, yes, this is a personal experience, but it is also universal to the human experience, and the meaning is thereby defined not only by the person, but the fact that it happened to them in this personal thing reflects out to hey, there's an interconnectedness to all of us.
Yeah.
I really, it's interesting to me when we talk about what certain psychedelics do, or empathogens specifically, that kind of turn off that part of our brain that says this is self and this is my connectedness to others. And it's something that I feel like almost like cyclically we go into and out of, and I feel like we're coming to this one place where we're not focusing on that anymore. We're not thinking about that other person as much. I don't know. I don't know what needs to happen to fix that. I don't know. Maybe I'm just down in the news
Twitter,
too much today.
Yeah.
I'm not even on Twitter. I haven't been on Twitter since before he did the salute.
Oh,
yeah.
I love Twitter. As they say, Twitter.
X, the only thing nobody will ever call Twitter.
Called.
What
is
that? That's dumb. You can't like X, you can tweet, you can't X.
No, you still tweet on X, which is even less logical, right? Like it's
that look, man, this guy.
I do like it though. I do like it. And I do like social media most of the time. Sometimes it's infuriating. But I do think that what we were talking about, those moments that change your life, or you read this great book, I think the same thing with these podcasts. I think what you're doing, somebody could be listening and they hear something and they go, wow, I never thought of that. Or suddenly that gives me some sense of purpose or meaning. So I'm a professor at a school called Sophia University, and I teach in transpersonal psychology. So beyond the ego, beyond the body. And it's stuff that often gets pathologized in mainstream psychology, but these kinds of experiences are very real. And one of the advantages of my working there is that I get to take courses. And so right now I'm doing a certificate program on dreams. And it's really, really interesting that, what you were just talking about, dreams allow the imagination. They propel us into creativity, and creativity propels our dream life. So it's both of those things, and they work together. But I think, one of the things we've been working on in this certificate, there's 5 courses, I'm in class 2, is dream sharing. And so we have these dream circles and we get together, and there are different methods for sharing our dreams. And one was developed by this guy, Montague Ullman. And it's really a projective approach where you sit and you listen to a person tell you about their dream. And then you don't try and interpret it for them. You begin to think about it for yourself. And you think, okay, so somebody described, this was a weird one, but he described his fingernails, the cuticles of his fingernails being really painful, and they were getting bloody. And so everybody listens, and you don't say, oh, that's wrong or that's right. But you begin to think about, well, if this were my dream, the fingernails might mean this. They might mean I need to be gardening more, but I need to wear my gloves. You could come up with all kinds of things. And the other thing we've been doing is taking a dream sequence and then dividing it up. So somebody tells a part of their dream. Everyone listens. Everyone says, if it was my dream, this is what it would mean to me. It's fascinating to see how we are all,
and it's
in
so funny.
This
Like, I love the connection nature of this. Like, we just had Catherine Bell. Our last Thursday night show talking
in fact.
About dreams. And like, it's so funny that you bring this up, only because you're like the embodiment of our hypothesis on this show right now. It's like we all have, it's all the same thing, right? And it's all happening at the same time. All of these interpretations or conversations are just sort of like slivers of observation about the same exact thing. And the more we have conversations like this, the more that becomes painfully obvious to me now. Like, I mean, I just talked to a guy today, funny enough. I said, do you know how hard it's getting to have conversations with regular people? Because we have so many reference points now. It's like, I don't want to.
It's so boring.
I don't want to not. Yeah, right. No.
Tax doing.
If you come at me with sports, I'm like, I don't even know.
That sports? It sounds like sports.
I don't even know. what you want me to do with that information?
But like, you know what I also love is that people like you who have a crazy background and all these other things gets to dreams, like, because of course you did. Like that's just another observational slice of this same
another
thing
avenue of consciousness.
That's just so I smiled ear to ear as soon as you started saying dreams. I'm like, oh my God, this is awesome. Like, I was like,
Matt and I looked at each other. We're like, holy shit.
Yeah,
it's happening awesome. Yet again.
Yeah. But it is funny too, because like, look, I had this vision actually after Catherine's episode that we are basically this, I started looking at everybody as like this ball, right? And sometimes those Venn diagrams, and you're a very small piece inside of a very large ball, right? But like you're always Venn diagramming with a lot of other orbs, like, you know, like there's just, and if you could notice those intersections, there could be meaning in there, right? It could be, you know, somebody you like, it could be somebody you don't like. But if you're just doom scrolling TikTok, like you're not even noticing those things. And I pick on TikTok a lot on the show. Like, I mean, I really, in general, what I'm really picking on is abdicating your free will and spare time to social media. I don't think that's a great human trait, right?
Except Little Red Book. I mean, we call it Red Note in the U.S., but it is Little Red Book in Chinese. Fucking love that.
You know what I mean?
That platform.
If you're really deep down that rabbit hole, you can't see those interactions, right? And then once I started looking around at that, and it's only been a week, like Tom said, I can almost see those orbs around people now, like, and be like, hey, look, here's where our intersection is. And now that I know this is where we intersect, what can we do to make things better for each other in that little intersection? And you know what, that, to borrow a quantum term, because I'm involved in a lot of quantum stuff, we can shrink the namespace very small down. Like we could shrink that space real small, because I don't need to worry about stuff that I can't change with you or things that'll never impact our relationship. Right. Like, but I can really focus in on the things that I notice we can. And then now we're both better for that experience. Right. Just makes the problem a lot easier to solve, I think. Not to sound too woo. I kind of went out on an edge there, but you know.
It's been happening more often.
I feel like it's a big stretch for either one of you. So
no.
Yeah.
No, we're starting to move in and get comfortable
this, or didn't I read that from you about you? Were you at? No, it wasn't Catherine.
No, that was Catherine.
She is NASA. Okay, I was like, Catherine somebody was in NASA. I swear to God, like I didn't make that up.
Yes.
I promised.
Well, I worked with
yeah, that's why I'm thinking that. You did mention him, and I'm like, oh, was she the one that was in NASA? Okay, got it. See, I wasn't completely ridiculous.
No, you weren't. You weren't, and that's just, you just pointed out another interconnection.
Yeah.
No, well, I mean, you know, that like, you know, look, there is a NASA connection to this as well. You know, there's an astronaut involved.
So what did you call the thing you were teaching at the university? Yeah, I wanted to ask you a little bit more about that.
psychology.
What exactly are we talking about there? Like, how do they define that? Because that's an interesting concept.
Yeah, especially since you called you said regular psychognomy. We
I'm
consider
wondering
this
what the regular psychologist
pathology, pretty much.
University think about.
I met a lot of psychologists.
Yeah.
There's nothing regular about them either.
Well, I think we all have our openings. And I do find that, actually, if you can get somebody into a place where they're comfortable and they feel safe, very different than if they're in a public situation and they have to defend whatever their, not silly worldview is.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to be made to look silly. But if you can get them in a private, personal place and just, talk, people will admit to amazing things. Michael Shermer, I love this story. So I've done a lot of work on death and on different cultural views. I'm trained as an anthropologist. Really? Awesome. I'm trained as a medical anthropologist, actually. So the healing thing is cool. But so I was doing this film with Deepak Chopra called Death Makes Life Possible. And I decided to interview Michael. And he is a leading skeptic
of what? Everything?
And so
everything.
Blanket statement. He is.
None of this is happening.
And he writes the science page for Scientific American. And Anyway, so when I was interviewing him, he was, well, when you're dead, you're done, you're gone. There's nothing more to it. And then I asked him a follow-up. I was like, well, have you ever had any kinds of experiences? And he's like, well, there's these experiences, and he just kind of poo-pooed it. But there's these experiences where, I heard my mother's voice after she died. And I said, oh, okay, you heard your mother's voice. And what did that say to you? Well, it was like, probably just one of those things that everybody has. Well, cut to, he wrote a column in Scientific American where he was getting married, and they got married at their home. And his wife's, I think it was her father, it might've been her grandfather, had given her a radio, and he died. And Michael tried to fix the radio and he could never get it to work. And so they just put it in a drawer and forgot about it. So they were having their wedding, and all of a sudden this music started playing. And, they completed the ceremony and they followed the music, and lo and behold, they opened the drawer and the radio was working. So Michael writes about this, and he's maybe a little shook by it because he didn't have a real clear explanation. And I think his wife may be more open to some of this stuff.
She's calling an exorcist. She's like,
anyway,
bring in a priest. This shit's crazy.
Oh, no, she was like, thanks for coming to my wedding. But he got slammed by his peers because he, in any way, shape, or form, raised the possibility that there could have been something, metaphysical about that. And I think that's a big issue for a lot of people, is they're afraid to look silly. They're afraid to be dissed by their colleagues. And so, I think that there's a lot going on in this realm that people are often just not comfortable talking about. So transpersonal psychology, which was your question, is that kind of, it started about 50 years ago, and it was a reaction to behaviorism and reductionism. So the idea that all of our behavior is based on, the environment around us, and that we're conditioned. So the whole operant conditioning thing. And so there were people that, most people actually report some kind of mystical experience. And yet, if you're a real materialist, you don't really hold any validity to that. So people like Abraham Maslow, he was one of the founders of transpersonal psychology. He was really interested
of Maslow's
in
triangle,
the hierarchy of needs.
All of pyramid. Sorry.
Yeah. Pyramid.
Yeah, it had some structure.
At a basic level, we all have these core needs. We need food, we need safety, we need companionship. But he started also looking at people having these experiences that were a little out of the box. And in our intuitive or internal drives. So that led to self-actualization. How can I be more than just my physicality? Can I self-actualize to do something great? Like you said, we find that place that connects us. But after that, as he got older and he started to understand his own experiences, he started talking about self-transcendence. And that is beyond my ego, beyond my individual embodiment. And it is that interconnectedness that you were talking about. So that's the place where the transpersonal, I think, really speaks to something larger than ourselves that gives us, kind of a spiritual framework, not religious, but spiritual, metaphysical is, wrapped in all of that. And, and I think it's really helpful, again, going back to this idea of death. One of the big things that happens is people are existentially terrorized by their own mortality. And this transpersonal perspective allows people to start thinking about it.
Exactly.
Okay,
no, I've been very open on this show. The only reason our joke is the only reason biohacking exists is because a bunch of Silicon Valley guys are afraid to die. I'm not self-aware on this topic. Let's put it that way.
I have so many questions right now. So and now I can't get any of them out. How good is that for a podcast host? No. So I think one of the things that that seems to be coming through here is back to that interconnectedness. But does that pyramid have to be fulfilled before? Do you have to hit that apex according to Maslow, right? Before we can start looking at this transpersonal. And then even more so, kind of getting back to this, right? You're saying like, here's this guy from Scientific America that is going to get, booted out of the club, if you will. He's going to get blacklisted. But do you see that tide changing too? Because now the conversation is happening more. And maybe this is, hey, I just bought a white Subaru. So now when I drive, all I see is white Subarus. And we're doing this show. We keep having these topics come up. And maybe I'm seeing it more. But we also have Dean Radin coming on in the new year. And here he is talking at Harvard Medical School about the science of magic.
Yeah, you think Harvard would have let him on campus 10 years ago talking about that?
I can't think 15, 20 years ago I
taught a course at Harvard
on magic
20 years ago. So
really?
Yeah. No, we were teaching about spirituality and health.
That feels on brand though.
And I talked about the data for these interconnections. So I've done a whole bunch of research on whether one person's intention can influence another person's body, and in measurable ways under controlled circumstances.
You can?
Can you show me? Can you show me studies on that, please? Because I'm working on this little side project, and I've got this fun idea I just want to do and throw it out there and see what happens. But I'd like to be able to give some verbiage to it. If that's okay, I might email you.
Yeah, you can, definitely. There, you can look at my website, MarilynSchlitz.com, and there's lots of studies. When I was at the Mind Science Foundation in San Antonio, Texas, I was working with physiological psychologist William Broad, and together we came up with this paradigm. So I have been interested in healing since I was 18 months old, as I said. And so I was doing a lot of parapsychology research. That's kind of where my track led me after I read Psychic Exploration. And I was really interested in, the kind of results we were getting. It was fascinating. But it wasn't really that practical. And I wanted to do something that had meaning. And so I got interested in studying healing. And at the beginning, it was psychic healing. So we would invite people to come in, whether they were psychics or the scientists or doctors or nurses. And we had the initial paradigm was there were two mice. You'd set the mice on these photo optic sensors, and there were video cameras on both of them. And the person in a distant room would be watching one of the mice and attempting to resuscitate it. They were anesthetized mice, so they'd been put to sleep. And we got significant results on that. So we found that when the person was intending for the one mouse, it woke up quicker than the other mouse. But one animal study was enough to do it for me. I didn't want to ever do that again. So we started working with humans. I went and worked with William, and we developed this protocol. So you two guys would be in our lab, and I'd be monitoring.
You can knock us both out. We're cool with that.
One of you would be sitting with your physiology being monitored, your autonomic nervous system.
Okay.
And that's the part of your physiology that you don't have to be thinking about. So in the beginning, we measured electrodermal activity. Then another person in another room, and again, it could have been a healer, it could have been a psychic, it could have been the people who really did the best were the experimenters, interestingly. But what we were able to do is, so you've got this kind of random signal, which is your autonomic system. It's pretty labile, it moves around. And you have this person in the other room, like Tom's over here, and he's looking at your image on a video screen, kind of like what we're doing now, only Matt wouldn't know. So you would, at random times throughout the session, attempt to either calm or activate the distant person. And so at the end of the session, what you could do is a statistic to look at the average amount of autonomic nervous system activity in the intention periods as compared to the control. We did 14 formal experiments at Mind Science, and we got highly significant results. So statistically, it looked as though there was an effect. So there's a proof of principle.
That's super fascinating.
I've done a whole bunch of other research and done research with Dean Radin over the years, know him well, hired him
That's
actually
funny.
at the Institute of Noetic Sciences.
It's a small world of
when
wood,
I was in charge there. Well, I was going to say to you guys, don't get too impressed by the interconnectedness of your exotic population because you're choosing.
Well, let's be fair. We're sending a lot of emails.
Look, you're saying but like, look, I think the people that are supposed to, like, honestly, talking to you, I'm like, I'll shut my clinic down. How do I work with this stuff? Like, let's just do that first of all. And then second of all, you're saying this stuff and I'm going, oh, remember Sheldrake wrote the 7 experiments that could change the world. And he's talking about the phantom limb experiments. And then you even mentioned the experimenters, right? And this idea that maybe they've seen it enough that they've actually learned what it looks like, how it feels, and are able to tune in, because that's a term that I hear coming up a lot in this space, to that frequency.
Well as well. He's somebody I've known since, I guess I met him in 1980. It is a small world. And we're all kind of in this space. But I wouldn't shut down your clinic, honestly. I think
my clinic's not paying either, so...
You know what though, Marilyn, we follow like threads, and like we had Caroline Corey on, and then that led to Jeff, and then that's sort of led to a couple other people. It's also kind of led to you then, and like everybody's sort of,
but yeah, there's like a kind of like quasi, this person does this, this. Oh yeah, of course they know each other.
To your point, it's not like
it's like, of course they know each other.
I have to say, pat ourselves on the back a little bit. We now have enough of these where people are like, oh, I could go listen to it and find out if you guys are batshit crazy and say no. And like, I think more people are like, no, they're not crazy. This looks like fun. Let's go do that.
Well, I've been name dropping more in the emails. I'm like, hey,
well,
what's
funny though, Marilyn, is it's a bouncing ball. It's not really like I know there's this whole thing in the podcast game, and it's funny. We've been learning a lot as we're doing this, but like people treat podcast guests almost like chips at a casino, right? Like, and when you get to a certain amount, you can cash up, and I've really never thought of it that way. And we actually had a little meeting here about this topic because look, we're getting better guests, right? Like, and that's great. But even if we got like Rogan status, like the quality of these conversations, I will forever find fascinating. And I can't imagine that I'm going to be like, no, let's stop doing that. Right. Like I don't treat guests like a guest their caliber. Like I don't care how many letters. We make fun of Tom for all the letters he has after his name all the time.
But look, man, they mean absolutely nothing to anybody. It's just, you earned them. You figure every once in a while on a business card. My point is like, I think it's not about like where people got to. It's like, what conversation can I have with them? Like, it doesn't really matter. Yeah. What is the most
and I'm learning what all the shit,
Marilyn,
I didn't know about the world, right? Like, when we had Caroline on there, 100% of her was foreign matter to me. Like at that time, like 100%. Just because I like have fun with the conversation doesn't mean I know anything about it. And like in Caroline's case, it was 0. When Jeff came on, I knew more, but Jeff came at us at a whole different angle, and now I'm back to knowing nothing.
Yeah, and I really thought we were going to talk all about the telepathy tapes, and here we are going like, yeah, so one of my students' moms was speaking in tongues after a holotropic breathwork class, and I'm like, oh, this is...
And it wasn't tongues. It turns out to be an Amazonian language. Yeah.
3 Amazonian
somebody
languages.
Somebody online called out. Like somehow somebody...
Yeah, an anthropologist of all people, and it's just so weird to sit back, and I think Matt and I are just kind of relishing the sensation right now, where it's like, oh, this. I mean, this
you can't, Marilyn. You can't like your studies. First of all, sound amazing. Like that, you found statistical correlations between these things. Like feels. Well, first of all, it feels consistent. I mean, all of the CIA work on remote viewing and stuff. We've had remote viewing people. We've had 2 or 3 remote viewing people on the show. Yeah. I mean, and so like
2 or 3. Yeah.
Did you really? That's awesome.
My career actually was in remote. Yeah. And I did work at the SRI program.
Wow.
That's so cool. It is a small world, but you know what's funny? I have an art history minor, and he brought up Lascaux, the cave paintings in Lascaux, and he said, it's Tom, isn't it weird how many times this has come up now on a show? Like he said, those handprints.
Yeah.
There's a good chance that this was a remote viewing like station where people used it as a launch pad
station. Yeah, like looking for predator.
Yeah, and
for
like that's
prey
why
to go hunt. You know, like here's the animals. I put my hand here. I concentrate, and I know where they are.
I studied the shit out of that cave. I had a really unwelcome Friday morning 8 a.m. class final on that stupid cave. I know.
They have that at art schools? Like, why would they have a class at 8 a.m.?
But like, like, look, I don't know if that's true or not, but it sure as hell is hard to explain. I mean, I think that like the more we stack this up, like how does a housewife from nowhere speak 3 different Amazonian dialects out of nowhere? Like she sure as hell wasn't taking a Duolingo on those things. Like it's not like she didn't watch a documentary on this and speak fluent whatever. Like, you know what I mean? Like that didn't happen.
So anyway, are you guys, how do you guys think the Ravens are going to do this season?
I like the series. It was pretty exciting.
Look, I'm not anti-sports. It's just not conversations I'm finding
Marilyn,
myself in too often these days.
Dropped several like spots on a graph that you've been in your career. It's like what sort of like, is there a tie that sort of connects those all? Like you seem to have a pretty neat path through life. You're like, oh yeah, by the way, I started remote viewing. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, we did. Well, I read that book, and that book really got me excited. So I met a professor, and he handed me Target and Puthoff's book, and he said, let's play with this. So we started playing with that. Then I went to Irvine. I did the last year of my undergrad with Robert Morris, who was a professor there. And I did my first formal study, and it was a remote viewing experiment. And we got statistically significant results on that. And then I knew I really needed to do something different than what I was doing. I was graduating. It was time to move on. And I applied to the LA Art School, and I applied to the Institute for Parapsychology in Durham, North Carolina. And I got accepted into both. And I realized I had to get out of LA. I just couldn't stand the traffic. It was a lot of things. So I went to North Carolina, did 2 probably the best controlled remote viewing experiments, and the most successful. We actually got written up for the rigor, one of, the National Research Institute or whatever it was. It was one of the Defense Department projects that they commissioned. And I was one of 2 studies, mine, that was considered to be, really well done. So that was cool. And that's when I started being interested in the healing work. That took me to Texas, ended up going to graduate school, went to UT Austin, and did my field work with psychic healers in the Caribbean, which was really awesome.
I mean, seriously, you're just like, casually. I'm like, well, so I went to the Caribbean, and I like
the number of people where I have to ask, where the hell were you at my career day? Like, I thought I chose something unique. And you're like, yeah, I was in the Caribbean with psychic healers. I'm like, that's not a statement.
Well, and then I went out and worked at the government CIA, DIA sponsored program.
She's like, you thought that was cool. Wait for the next 5 things.
Wait. Are we on a list? Are we on a government list now because we've talked to too many people? Do we know too much?
Dean will tell you that he thinks there's still a government program going on.
That's funny.
I talked to him yesterday, actually, and Anyway, I'll make this quick. So I went out, and then, so I had been at the NIH for a meeting when they were starting the alternative medicine program. And I met this man, his name was Wink Franklin. And he was the executive director at the Institute of Noetic Sciences. So I went out to California. I had these 2 gigs, and the government stopped funding us at the SAIC program. And so, and I did some really wild, crazy work there too, but that's another story. Anyway, the phone rang, and it was Wink Franklin, and he invited me to come and be the director of research at IONS. And I ended up being there for 25 years and started, director of research. Then I was VP. Then I was president. I was CEO. Did a lot of amazing stuff. Met a lot of remarkable people. And then why was I telling you that story? Oh, the path. And the path.
Right.
Like, I never applied for the job at IONS, but Edgar Mitchell was the person whose book changed my life. So that was all very interesting. And I ended up working very closely with him for a long time.
That's got to be weird,
and
right?
then
You get this
I
book
decided
that changes your
to
life,
go
and
make
now all of a sudden he's a coworker. Like, I mean, that's nuts, right?
It was amazing. Amazing. And you would have loved his stuff on quantum holography and, some of the people that, because he was an astronaut, he was like a, major hero, and people were.
How does he feel about flat
so many
earthers?
interesting people coming around.
No,
well, he's gone now, so I'm not quite
actually
sure. But
semi-joking that we need a flat earther to come on the show because we
you could, you should. And then, these people who think that we never went to the moon.
Yeah.
The deniers. There's all kinds of worldviews. But anyway, so I took time off. I was working with Deepak. We were making this movie. And then my son was going through a whole lot of stuff. And I just was in despair, honestly, because I didn't know how to help him. And so a friend of mine said to me, maybe you should get a job. And I was like, huh? Literally. And so I did. I went to Sophia. I had an interview on Wednesday. By Monday, I was the chair of the department. So that was very cool. And I've been there since. And I just continue to do crazy, remarkable research with amazing people.
You know what I hear out of all those stories? You
path.
Answered the question, but I don't think you thought you answered the question. Like, you just like hit these peaks and you're like, you know what? I could check that off the list now. What's the next like cool thing I can do here? It's all connected, but like I just love the part of your story I love is you kind of got out at the time where you're like, look, I did what I came here to do. Like, why are we going to muddy the waters here? Let's shake hands and move on. Like,
and it seemed to flow, it seemed to flow so smoothly. Like it just kind of happened.
It has been a remarkable journey, and I'm very grateful. And the interesting thing, talking about dreams, I had a dream a couple nights ago, and Wink was in that dream, and he's no longer on this planet. But I was just about to figure out what's my next move. And I woke up. So,
Catherine actually gave us a pretty interesting insight about that because I asked her a similar question. She said, it helps to not even move in the morning. Like when you wake up, have a book, like even if it's a little tiny notebook, but don't move. Like try not to roll over, try not to do anything, and just free form anything about the dream. And then the act of writing it down, even if it's like a couple words, will allow you access to that dream through the course of the day or week, right? And she said, like, usually the meanings in her dreams come days after the dream. Like she's got to chew on it it's not like you don't wake up and say, and the joke we made 500 times was cigars. We're like, you're like, you're not
cigars.
You don't have to get too immediately interpretive of the cigar, right? Like you can just kind of chew on it for a minute, no pun intended, right? Like you could just, you could just kind of like let it, rattle around and hear it later,
germinate. Yeah.
But listen, I mean, I would never have thought of that. I'm just like, fuck, I forgot my dream because apparently I rolled over to hit my alarm, right? Like, and that was enough. It's gone. Bye. Like,
the other thing is if you can sleep in, people who wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning usually don't remember their dreams, but people who can get into that hypnagogic phase, that place between waking and sleeping, have a much better recall. So that's,
do we have any kind of hypothesis about why that happens? That's a curious observation. Like
well, I think it has to do with awareness. If you're in that middle place, first of all, the REM state is close to the surface. So you're starting to wake up. So you're being more aware. but you're still sleeping. So you can have these dreams and you can start to remember them better. That's been my experience in talking to people that are, dream experts. That seems to be a consensus. There's a lot of mystery about dreaming, though. We still don't totally understand
and it's funny
why
because
or how we dream.
It's funny. I like photography. This is a weird stretch. Bear with me for 2 seconds. In COVID, I got a telescope because I'm like, oh, if I could take pictures of trees, I could take pictures of stars. And I got really into it. And I'm still into it. But then I was like, okay, then I bought a microscope. And then I bought 2 microscopes. And I'm like, look, I could take pictures of shit down there. Now I'm looking at macro photography again. What I realized is I don't really care about what I'm taking pictures of. I just like taking pictures. And I feel like what I'm hearing from you is like, you don't really care how you're exploring consciousness. You just like exploring consciousness. It doesn't really matter like what the discipline is. You're clearly good at many of them. like,
well, have you seen the Aurora Borealis lately? Because it's like
we last night there was photos down here in Maryland.
I heard you could,
amazing. Yeah, my neighbors have been posting these remarkable pictures, and
but see, that kind of shit makes me like very aware of how very expanded models of consciousness are not only plausible but likely. When you see the Aurora Borealis and you start to deconstruct what's actually happening there and stuff, you're like, there's no fucking way that it's just happening here. Like there is something way bigger than this that's in control of all of this that we're all part of. And like, whatever you want to call that, however you want to define it, whatever, I'm not going to get into the details, but if you don't recognize that there is something there, I feel like we're not in the same conversation. You know what I mean? Like there's gotta be.
And the great mystery. And that's the thing to keep us humble, the sense of awe and wonder and humility. And I think the more we can come from that place, the less reactive we need to be. And, maybe we can stop all this crazy violence.
Yeah. I mean, I listen, hallelujah, sister. I'll tell you that. Hey, Marilyn, I want to talk to you for literally the rest of this week, but eventually we must let our listeners off the hook and let them press stop.
I feel like we just
I know.
We just got the overview.
It's so tragic.
And we didn't get to get into like anything so
listen,
deep.
Marilyn, I hope, first of all, before we get to your commercial on Marilyn, which we have to at least get in here for sure. I hope that we can have you back at some point. We have so many things that we could cross over. I
just want to ask about every experiment you've ever done.
Well, we haven't talked about healing yet, really. So we'll come back to that.
It's funny. We just had a guy talking about food for healing. And it's like, he laid out a perfectly cogent conversation on how food is healing. And I'm like, and we talked about that at the beginning. Like, what is not health, right? Like, I mean, food's health. Yeah. Consciousness is health. Music's health. Vitamins are health. Look.
Well, there are things that are not healthy for us. The stress and anxiety of living in this wacky political situation.
It's not just politics; it's just the world in general, which politics is a piece of, right? Like, and it's like everything. I talked about this on a call today. They're like, "Why do you think the economy is like kind of struggling right now?" I'm like, "Well, because most of the world is addicted to social media. And on Monday, it's Gaza. On Tuesday, it's fucking nuclear warfare. On Wednesday, it's what bathroom can this person use? On Thursday, it's tariffs. On Friday, we're back to Gaza. It's like it never fucking ends. Like there's like a global level catastrophe every minute of every day. And we can get into this some other time, but like I'm a huge Dunbar number guy, and I will gladly throw down any conversation on arguing about the validity of the numbers and everything. But here's what I will say summarily. Our brains, I don't think, are equipped to handle mass pieces of information. If you call that 200 people, 153 people, whatever, the whole idea of Dunbar, for anyone who doesn't know, is that there's this like mental ceiling, if you will, that we can't tear past. And I think that's really true. And I think you only need to look at anything in our world to measure that, right? When it was just you and your town, how stressed out were you about the Vietnam War? You weren't. You were kind of, because you read about it, but it was really not. You didn't get a TikTok feed of some Ho Chi Minh soldier, you know what I mean? Like going through his day like that. Now you would. Now that's a thing. You'd get 50 versions of that, 150 versions, right? It's
I've got an Uncle Ho T-shirt, by the way.
What do you have on?
I have an Uncle Ho Chi Minh T-shirt. I just
this is a choice, and we can make a decision, like you said, about X or TikTok or whatever it is. We can turn off the noise and those weapons of mass distraction that are constantly bombarding us, and we can begin to find that place of peace and finding friendships and good social outlets and, playing with our dogs and our kids and our grandkids, whatever it is. I think those are choices we make, and it's a practice.
No, I love it. And listen, thank you for really, honestly and truly, I mean this from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for doing work like this that, like, quite frankly, I don't have the balls to quit my job and do, but like, I fucking find what you've been talking about fascinating, beyond fascinating. And like, it's a little depressing that I can't spend more time learning about it, but I'm going to have to settle for having people like you on the show and just doing the short version. Yeah. I mean,
happy to help.
I feel like you got to tell us, kind of where you mentioned your website. Give us that again. Tell us how people can kind of work with you, get in touch with you. What are you working on? All that stuff.
Well, we don't have
we have
that
all
much
the time
but
we need for
Marilyn
Schlitz, trust me.
I try to keep my website as current. Right now, we're in the process of updating it. So there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of my publications. So if you're interested in that, I have a number of books. I have a new book that's going to be coming out shortly, Death, Let's Talk About It. And so that's fun and interesting. And I love all the worldviews. And just one final thing I want to say about death, which is there is this kind of anxiety and terror that people have, and that causes maladaptive behaviors. We get into this tribalism. We get into this, you're wrong, I'm right. And I think if we can make peace with our own, inevitability and our own mortality, the world will be a better place. And so that's one of the reasons that I do the kind of work I do. It's like those little things that I couldn't do when I was growing up in Detroit, I can do better now. And thank you for the outlet. No,
it's totally my pleasure.
Share the story and see my son's art.
This is amazing.
Fantastic.
Listen, I could talk about kids' artwork all day. Is that somebody's
Frenchie? Is that somebody's French bulldog?
It was, yeah. He did a whole lot of art. Well, now he's not really doing that.
He's like, Mom. He's like, look, I checked that box. I'm moving to something else, man. Like, I'm heading off to the next thing, right? Marilyn, awesome talking to you, man. Thank you so much.
Okay, guys.
We're going to connect you all over the place.
This is so
enjoy
great.
The weekend, guys.
Okay, we'll talk another day. Bye.
Be subversive, irreverent.
Health is wealth, but you knew that.
Everybody knows that.
But so is following us on social media at Irreverent Health. And check out our website for more exclusive content at irreverenthealth.com.
Oh, I like this.
Thanks for